Okay, welcome back. We are ACI Course 10, Class 3. It's September 7th, 2025, where I am. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And there they are with you, gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. And recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow this wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha, and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha and the Dharma and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, to the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, to the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right, so last class we learned Lord Maitreya's definition of bodhicitta, definition of the wish for enlightenment, which, I want to reach my total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. It sounds so simple, but it's really, really rich with meaning. Then we learned that there's two forms of this wish. And technically, we learned that there's two forms of the two forms. And if you put either one on your homework or quiz, that's fine with me, even though the answer key only gives one version. So the one the answer key says, there's the wish in the form of the prayer, which means we're praying to get the actual wish. And then there's the wish in the form of action. We're actually choosing our behaviors in such a way to cultivate the goodness that will get us to our goal, whatever the goal is, at our level. So on Mahayana path, our first goal is seeing emptiness directly. But technically, that's not even true. We've got goals before that. But all of them will require gathering goodness and clearing out negativity. And then eventually we get through that doorway of ultimate reality. And then our goal is our total Buddhahood, which is what the, words of the wish actually say. And then the other way to divide bodhicitta is the deceptive form and the ultimate form, which I didn't use those words in last class. We'll use them later. Meaning the wish that we have in our appearing reality, the words in our head, the feeling in our heart. And the ultimate bodhicitta is the direct perception of emptiness, followed by that heart-opening experience of seeing all beings. So 2 forms of bodhicitta. Then we had those 5 metaphors. I'm not going to go over them. But the last question was, why is it that nothing less than this wish can transform our world and our being? And I remember hearing myself say it a number of times, but it took me a long time for it to actually kick in, like what it really means. So it's I call them the 2 bignesses within the wish. The wish to reach total enlightenment, by which we mean the highest evolution that our mind is capable of achieving for the benefit of limitless number of beings. It takes those 2 really, really large objects of focus to be able to plant our seeds strongly enough, big enough, that they can ripen into a totally pure being in a totally pure world. Some other class, I remember Geshe-la's example was, if you do a deed for your own personal benefit, nothing wrong with that. You're doing a deed for one person's benefit. And then Suppose you could do that same deed, but somehow it could benefit 10 beings. Then the same deed has planted bigger seeds, more powerful seeds, because it's done it like 1 times 10. Then multiply that by all the beings that live in your city. And the seeds are that much more powerful. Now multiply it by all sentient beings. Do you see how powerful the seeds are? By giving the same flowers to Aunt Mary with this different state of mind. Bodhicitta, the mind of bodhicitta. So we heard about it. We've spent 2 classes so far talking about it. And hopefully there have been little glimmers in your heart of, oh, maybe that's possible. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I am meant to do that. But just by growing the wish doesn't seem to just make it happen, right? We don't wake up the next morning, oh, I have bodhicitta in my heart. Maybe you do. I hope so. I'm rejoicing if you do. But if you're like me, I have to keep reminding myself, right? And studying about it and meditating about it, and then, trying to work it out. Smati and I were at the grocery store. He does our grocery shopping. And he had an awful experience. He loves to grocery shop, but he had a bad experience with another customer in the shop, like a frightening experience. And that's unusual for him to be in a situation, right? He used to be the big, strong guy. And now he's like this kind of crippled old person. And he got bullied. And so we had the original reaction, and then we sorted it out, and we sorted it out some more, and we sorted it out some more. And our conclusion was that the person was just so angry at something that some little thing that Samati did just made him blow his cork. And he blasted Samati for it. And our conclusion was, thank goodness he blasted Samati for it, because otherwise he would have gone home and maybe beat his kids and his wife. And now his cork, was released, and Sumati took the hit. And, nothing Sumati said would calm the guy down. He tried, and he just was getting madder and madder. But in the end, right, our conclusion was, Sumati, you were there for a purpose, to protect that guy's family. Is it true? We don't know. But the seeds we plant went from, oh, that awful guy, to, oh, that suffering guy, to, oh, maybe we were able to help him in some way. There's a higher level yet that we didn't actually get to. We knew it, but we were happy with our conclusion that, wow, thank you for blasting at me, says Samanti, instead of at somebody who would be less able to adjust. Why am I saying that? Because it's just this little glimmer of our bodhicitta was able to hang on, right, in the midst of a situation that was, it could have become dangerous and, could have been awfuler. So we're trying to grow this bodhicitta so that it becomes our like automatic color of all of our situations. And imagine how different, we would be if we're moving through life with this love and compassion that's not Buddha yet, but it's so big that no matter what's going on around us, our response is just more of it. Doesn't mean, that we won't get into unpleasant situations. but our response to them will be very different than what our usual normal human response would be. Not bad, just normal human response. And we're learning that normal human response is mistaken. And it's a response that perpetuates the mistake. And that's what we're learning. We're trying to learn how to overcome the mistake. So we're going piece by piece. So as humans, we have needs. We need food, we need shelter, we need clothing, we need water, like our physical needs. And then we have like social needs. We really do need to have contact with other beings. And then we have emotional needs and spiritual needs too, however they're manifesting for someone. And when those human needs are not met, a human does not thrive, right? They've done so many studies on babies, newborn babies, that when they are isolated, they just don't thrive. They can be well fed, but if they're not touched, they die fed. It takes a certain amount of contact with an infant to keep it alive. Interesting. We did another course where we learned that even hope is something that keeps us alive. We're learning now that, what do they say? Isolation, physical isolation is as bad as smoking, as bad for your health as smoking. Like sitting is the new smoking, but so is being isolated. And apparently even this kind of contact is considered isolated. I think I would argue with that, but right, it's like not having physical contact, one-on-one contact, meaning you don't have to necessarily be touching somebody, but it affects our physical health. So the very fact that you're in this class means that on some level you know that, and you know that people are suffering from a lack of that contact, the lack of that emotional need being met, the lack of spiritual need being met. And then we seem attracted to those stories about the Bodhisattvas and doing their deeds that are so selfless and so astonishing at how they respond to a given situation. And that attraction comes from our own past karmic seeds. Our own goodness is ripening to hear those stories to begin with, and then to be like inspired by them is also our own past goodness, our own past ways in which we were the one doing the kindness that inspired others, as well as having been inspired by others' kindness, right? The seeds ripen as the habit coming back to us and the circumstances coming back to us as we understand. But it's different amounts for different people. Some people hear the word bodhicitta and what it means, and they get shivers up their spine, and others just go, oh, wow, that's cool. And others go, oh, maybe somebody else can do that, not me. And others just go, that's nuts to act like that. And so wherever we are along that line, you're somewhere out here on the attracted to bodhicitta, because here you are in this class. So happy for that. When our bodhicitta is getting stronger and stronger, it means our compassion and love for others is getting more and more automatic, like more and more constant. in our frame of mind, our frame of heart, so that we're reaching a point where we would just spontaneously, effortlessly give someone something that they needed, right? Someone who approaches us and, can you help me with such and such? And we don't pause and think, do they deserve it? Are they going to hurt me? What do they really need, right? All the ways our mind judges whether we're going to help somebody or not. From a bodhicitta standpoint, it's like, you need Kleenex? Yes, here, right? Whip it right out of my purse without thinking. You need $50? Yes, whip it right out of my purse, right? Not that I look around the street and, oh, there's somebody, they must need money, I'll go give it to them. It's not like that. But when you're confronted with a known need, there's just this automatic outpour of, I'll solve it if I can. If you can't, you can't. That's fine. So it's this level of compassion, love, and wisdom that's growing, that takes away the hesitation, the what about me factor that stops us from just being what they need, giving what they need. And it's valid and it's healthy. And I'm not saying don't take care of yourself, right? In situations, I'm not saying that. But our bodhicitta is going to grow us into this effortless, spontaneous being that can give of ourselves in that way. There's this story called the Bodhisattva who couldn't stop crying. And we just get a little piece of that story now in the Lamrim courses. We heard the longer version of it. But this Bodhisattva who couldn't stop crying, there's this young man in India, ancient times, and he's yearning for his spiritual path. And he hears this voice that says, go east, young man. So he just goes east. And he keeps hearing this voice, go east, keep going east, keeps going. Finally, he's getting glimpses, like visions, that there's a teacher teaching something extraordinary. And he's trying to get to that teaching before it ends. So he's in a hurry going east. Finally, he gets to the town that it's happening. And he realizes, I need to make an offering to this teacher before I can enter those teachings. And by the time he gets there, he's spent all his money and he has no money. So he says, no worries, I'll just cut some of my flesh and I'll sell fresh meat to the people, and somebody will buy some fresh meat from me and I'll have the money to make the offering. So he's in the town square, ready to cut a big hunk of his, I don't know, what's the yummiest part of your flesh. And a demon is aware of his incredible motivation. And, demons are these beings that can't stand goodness happening, virtue happening, and the demon gets in the way. So the poor fellow, he's hollering, fresh meat for sale, but the demons blocked his sound. So what people are seeing is this guy with a knife, ready to cut himself, hollering, but nobody can hear anything coming out of his mouth. So they just think he's crazy. And he doesn't know they can't hear him. And they're just looking at him weird and walking by, like walking around him. And he's getting so frustrated that he just starts to cry out of frustration because he's going to miss the teaching because he doesn't have the money to make an offering and nobody, right, will buy his flesh. So apparently, a wealthy maiden sees his plight and she asked her dad, can I have some money for this guy? So she goes down and says, hello, not to worry, I have money, I'll get you the offering. So she gets him offerings, he goes to the teaching, he gives his offerings, he gets a teaching on emptiness, and he goes into the direct perception of emptiness on the spot. And like the story is, you think the guy's crying out of frustration for himself, but he's crying because he's so frustrated that he can't get to the teaching. Not that he has to cut his flesh to get there, and not even that people won't buy from him. He's just like, I've got to get to that teaching and I can't get there. And the reason I need that teaching is because there's so much suffering in my world and I have to stop it. Right? His frustration was so much bigger than what my puny frustration would be. So it's those kinds of feelings. It's like, oh man, the Buddha's past life tales are so extraordinary. And it's like, yeah, wow, great. Buddha did that. I can't imagine ever being like that. And yet there's something inside that goes, but wouldn't it be cool if your personal identity was such that you could cut your flesh or pull out your eyeball for somebody's benefit, or jump off the cliff so that you could feed them with your body, that elephant, remember? To be able to just do that without any self-concern at all, because you just go on, right? You take another form and you do more. I don't know, it just can be really, really inspiring. No logic says we can't do this, says Geshe Michael, right? We say, oh man, I can't. But if you go through the logic, it's like, I'm not doing it now, that's true, but it doesn't mean I can't, right? Just because I haven't doesn't mean I can't. If I can hear about somebody else having done it, knowing about karmic seeds, there's something inside me that's done something teeny close to that has grown into the story about the Bodhisattva that couldn't stop crying, right? Or even Buddhas being Buddhas. But we have this poison, this mistake, this constant concern for protecting ourselves, for getting our needs met, our desires met. Our own selfishness is so strong. And right, in ordinary human being, we need that. It's self-preservation so that we can pass on our genes. And it's built into our central nervous system to protect ourselves. And so really, truly, the Bodhisattva ideal is swimming upstream, not just culturally, but physiologically. And the reason it's possible is because even our physiology has no nature of its own, right? It's projected physiology being physiology, and that's why it is our physiology. But it could be different. With different seeds, our physiology will even be different. Thank goodness, or we couldn't transform this thing into a Buddha body. So if we could just decide, I'm going to stop being a selfish Slav and actually do it, right? This all would be very easy. We can't just decide because the selfish Slav me is in every seed that I've ever planted. So I can't just turn it off, even with like really, really strong willpower. It's still going to be in the seeds ripening until something happens that make me so strongly doubt that I stop replanting it. And that's part of what happens on our direct perception of emptiness. But until then, our what about me is going to be our primary reaction. But that does not mean we have to act from it. So that's what we're learning. Master Shantideva's book gives us an actual strategy for doing that work, training ourselves in this different way to react to our own selfishness. And then once we learn the strategy, it's up to us to try it on for size, right? Nobody says we have to. We won't know whether it works or not until we do. But just learning about it has planted some seeds in our minds. So Master Shantideva points out that if we don't have this kind of love and compassion that automatically, spontaneously, wants to solve the problem for the other, we have obstacles. And in order to grow that love compassion, we need to first clear out the obstacles. And as we clear out the obstacles, our little baby efforts at growing the compassion can actually plant firmly enough to grow into bigger and bigger actions for growing the love compassion bigger and bigger. When we have obstacles, the obstacles are like the opposite of what we're trying to grow. And so even when we try to plant a good seed, it's not strong enough to override the already planted negative seed. So we can try to plant good ones, and we just can't get over the wall of the past negative ones that we've put in there. And they're not negative like, oh, I killed a bunch of people and I stole everybody's food. Not like that. More subtle obstacles that really are these recurring what about me states of mind, right? The me that happen. So in order to grow our bodhicitta, it's useful, says Master Shantideva, for us to focus for a while on clearing out these obstacles and gathering goodness so that we have sufficient goodness for our actual purification of our full-on negative seeds to be effective. So it's interesting. It's like we've got negative seeds, things we've thought, said, and done towards others that are ugly enough that when they ripen, we know they're going to bring suffering for me, and that my reaction to them is going to be making more suffering for me and others, like big ones and little ones. And we want to go right to purification. Let's rip those out. And Master Shantideva says to have an effective purification effort doesn't actually come from doing that purification. It comes from gathering goodness, enough goodness, so that what you do to purify that can give you a positive result. Do you see there's nothing about our 4 powers of purification that work on their own? We have to have planted goodness so that when we do our 4 powers, we get a positive result. We could do the 4 powers and get a negative result. That's not purifying. We could do the 4 powers and get no result. That feels like not purifying, right? We can do the 4 powers and it can be a long time before we see the result. So if we plant goodness first, so that when we do our 4 powers, it's like, wow, I really do feel like this has shifted and I don't see the angry boss anymore, right? It's only going to happen by way of seeds ripening. So he says there are preliminaries that we can do that will set us up for more successful purification practice. And when we hear what they are, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been doing those all along, right? Since I stepped onto this path at this level, meaning as your spiritual path as opposed to your business path. we're taught, we make offerings, we go for refuge, we do prostrations, and we're taught why, but they still feel a little bit like, well, it's just the cultural custom to do that. And Master Shantideva says, yes, it's become a cultural custom, but there's a reason for it. And the seeds that are being planted when we do those deeds are remarkably powerful, and more so when we understand why and what we're doing when we do them. So Master Shantideva says, before we even start our purification practice, do these 3 preliminaries. Now, how long? I don't know. He doesn't say, do 108 and then go on. They always say, do them until you don't need to do them anymore. Well, how do I know? Well, because then when you're doing your purification, you really do change something. Then you know you've done enough of your preliminaries. So why not just keep doing your preliminaries before you do your purification? And then, right, it doesn't matter how long you do them for, you just do them, keep doing them. The preliminaries we do in the moment don't affect the purification I do 5 minutes later. But the seeds I plant doing the preliminaries are gathering the goodness so that some purification that I do sometime soon is going to be, wow, blastingly effective. Right? So we still have the time gap we're working with, but we're learning these skills to shorten it. So I need my vocabulary list here. I think I have everybody. Okay. So again, we're learning a little Tibetan, West Asian language to help protect it. So Master Shantideva says there are these 3 preliminaries through which we set up our conditions for our purification practice to actually work. So here are the 3 preliminaries: Gyalkyen, Tunkyen, and Dikpa Shakpa. But wait, Dikpa Shakpa is the purification. We'll get back to it. Gyalkyen, the words mean hindering conditions. And Tunkyen means conducive conditions. So what we want to do for our preliminaries is something to clear out the hindering conditions and something to gather more conducive conditions so that our actual purification, the Dikpa Shakpa, can be effective. Dikpa Shakpa means to split open. They use the same word Shakpa when you have the log and you take the axe, and you wham, and you split the thing open. That's Shakpa. Here they're talking about like split open. We say heart, but I don't mean our human heart. We use the word heart as being that deep, deep, deep inner part of us, right? That we keep closed off from almost everybody because we don't want people to really see it because we don't trust them not to hurt us. But inside that is our immense goodness, and inside that are all the things we don't want to tell anybody. So to split open means to split open this place within us where we keep ourselves hidden. Then Dikpa, it apparently literally means bad deeds. My heart reacts to bad and good because they're like such nebulous terms. And then I say, oh, well, let's call them positive and negative, but then those are kind of too vague. And so Dikpa here is deeds that when they ripen will hurt me and make me hurt others. Like they'll cause pain, and they'll cause me to cause pain to others. And to me, that's what a bad deed is. Right? So I try not to say bad, but it's a little cumbersome to say deeds that always say deeds that will come back to make me have pain and cause pain to others. But that's what we're talking about the seeds we're trying to rip out, to open up to, so that we can take them out, right? Not just show them to somebody, but get them out. When they're tight inside there, we can't get them out. We have to open them up. So Dikpa Shakpa is this getting in there and ripping out these seeds that when they ripen, will ripen as something really unpleasant, right? Or even slightly unpleasant. So we want to get rid of these obstacles. We want to gather the conducive conditions. And when we have that going on, our purification will work. I keep saying that. We have obstacles that block our ability to take care of others with the same effortless, spontaneous concern as we take care of ourselves. Right? A mother with a small child has shown herself that she can do it. The problem is these obstacles, the gyalkens, they're subtle things. Not really subtle. They're obvious once we know what they are. They're quite obvious. But until we learn about them, we don't want to admit we have them. So, right, we don't understand. We don't know to look for them, etc. So we have to learn about them, and we will. And then tunkens are these gathering the conducive circumstances. And again, we would think, well, just go give lots of flowers to lots of Aunt Marys. And that would be nice. But there are things that we can do on a more powerful level that will gather these conducive conditions faster, bigger and faster. Right? It has to do with the power of the karmic object, of course. Geshe-la said, once we learn to identify these obstacles and start removing them, we are halfway to bodhicitta. And it's like, which bodhicitta is he talking about? Direct perception of emptiness bodhicitta, or I want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I choose to believe he's talking about the ultimate bodhicitta. Clearing out our obstacles is halfway there. It makes sense. So to get to that, we need the intention to get to that. We need the intention to be willing to recognize our obstacles and to be willing to clear them out in order to get to the bodhicitta. So first our intention was, I want to get bodhicitta. And now we realize, oh, well, my intention needs to include the intention to recognize and clear out my obstacles so that I can get to the bodhicitta. Then we take that intention and we turn on our action, and the action to clear out the obstacles and gather the goodnesses in order to grow our bodhicitta, in order for our bodhicitta to turn from bodhicitta in the form of the prayer to bodhicitta in the form of the action. So we have like pre-munsem and juksem at this level of willingness to find and clear out my obstacles and gather my goodnesses. And then the actual doing of it, the juksem, that will lead us to the bodhicitta, the I want to be Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings in a wish, that will lead us to our action, taking the vows, choosing our behaviors according to our wish, that will grow the goodness that will lead us to the actual experience. Ultimate reality, bodhicitta, and then the heart opening, bodhicitta after that, the appearance side. Called the deceptive, but it's very real. It's just happening in our appearing world, which is called deceptive world. All right. So the second chapter in Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is the chapter on Dikpa Shakpa, purification. But it starts out with this long explanation of how you have to prepare for effective purification. And that's what I just went through. And he says the way we gather the goodness to be able to purify is we do these 3 preliminaries. So here are the 3 preliminaries: chaksewa, kyamdro, and chupa. Chaksewa, it means prostrations. I'll come back to it. Kyamdro means refuge. And chupa means making offerings. Sound familiar? Those who are regular meditators who know their 7 preliminaries. Right? We make a mental prostration. We make offerings. We go for refuge. We make a mental prostration. We make offerings. And then we purify. And then we rejoice. That will come later. So here's why it's in the preliminaries like that. And once we understand, we might want to spend a little more time on them and take them a bit more seriously, or even decide I'm going to focus, a certain period of time on doing lots of prostrations in order to gather this goodness that I need for all my practices to go better, to be more successful, right? So all this idea of clearing obstacles and gathering goodness works for anything we're trying to achieve. And even like I would posit, like suppose you have a project at work that you have a deadline, you have to, accomplish something. And you have all the usual ways that you're going to accomplish that. And in the past, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so you're a little bit anxious about whether this one's going to work. You might want to think to yourself, well, yes, we're going to do those things. But you know what? I'm also going to do, 500 prostrations. I'm going to do, 200 refuge prayers. I'm going to make offerings to my lamas. And then I'm going to launch my team in doing my project and see what happens. Now the first time it might be like, nah, nothing happens. But it might be that, oh my gosh, like some miraculous ease with which your project goes. We won't know until we try. If it doesn't work the first time, try it again another time. But it's just counter our human nature to think some ritual like that could make a difference in my worldly project. But the whole point of your spiritual life is to influence you and everyone around you in your worldly life. Truly, we have our focus on future lifetimes, but it doesn't mean we can't use it for our day-to-day life as well. So here's how it goes. The chaksawa It means prostration, but literally the word chak is the honorific for the hand. So the Buddhas have something in their hand, or your Lama has something in their hand that you aspire to, you want. And of course, what they have is their knowledge, love, wisdom, compassion, right? What they have is their enlightenment. And it's as if we see them as having something that they could, in fact, actually hand us. And that we could go, thank you very much, right? Receive and put into ourselves. There is some truth to that. The Lama, the Buddha, can't bonk us on the head and make us change. What they actually have is their past experience, their teaching. Here's what works, here's what doesn't. Yeah, so really what they have is what they have to share, to teach us. And this idea of tsawa is that you're looking for that. You're wanting that. So chak sawa means to look for something from their hand. Look for something that they're going to give us. And they use that for this feeling of admiration, aspiration, a bit of devotion, like they're the one who's my match. They're the one that understands me. Right? They're the one that I can trust. That all of that's inside this idea of going to them, to their hand for what it is I need, the help that I need. And then that feeling in our heart, excuse me, is the actual prostration. But there's a physical thing that we can do that helps demonstrate to our own mind how serious we are in humbling ourselves before this being in our request for them to help us. And it's the physical prostration. Is it necessary? Does that holy being need you to prostrate to them? No. They aren't the least bit interested, to be honest with you. What they are interested in is you seeing yourself do something that helps us chip away at our pride a little bit, cultivate some so admitting to ourselves that we need help from someone ahead of us on the path, that we're willing to open ourselves up to receive. All of that's included in this willingness to bow down before this other being. You know, in our modern cultures, non-Asian culture, we don't bow down to things, right? We're even taught, don't do that. And so here it's a different, really different state of mind, different state of heart. We're not prostrating because Buddha said so. And we're not prostrating because it's the custom. Geshe says, when you come out, all the way out of your direct perception of emptiness, like all the way out of that meditation session, the first thing you'll do is throw your face on the floor because of what you are directly aware is right there with you, right? Totally enlightened beings, all of them, including your future one. And it's humbling, he says. And you throw yourself before them. It's a totally natural response. And that's what the prostrations of the Buddhist tradition is meant to simulate, is this natural, spontaneous humbling after that experience. So there's a way to do it that helps increase its power. We can do our prostrations on automatic pilot, and it's probably better than no prostrations at all. Or we can do them very mindfully, and then the seeds are planted in a stronger way. We're imagining this holy being before us, whether they're a being who's in the flesh and still alive, or we're in the flesh but not still alive, or a being we've never seen in this flesh or never known of, whatever, this being who is like the highest ripening of your highest karmic goodness, is this one that we see before us. If you physically see them, great. If it's in your mind's eye, great. If you're not a mind's eye seer, know they're there, great. And then towards them, understanding that they are this being made of love, compassion, wisdom, my words, use your own, so that our heart is like, oh, you're the one who's going to help me. Then we tuck our hands, we do prayer hands, but in this tradition, you tuck your thumbs inside, so it's not an empty space. We used to have this thing, I don't remember how you did it as a little kid. Here's the church and here's the steeple, open the doors and you see all the people. Like, it's the same idea, right? Open the doors and you've got something inside your your prayer hands. So you tuck your thumbs in, you touch them to your crown as a symbol of the cause for your physical body of your future Buddha. You attach it to your forehead as the cause for the marks and signs on that physical body. You touch it to your throat as a symbol, a cause for your speech of a Buddha. And you touch it to your heart as the cause for your mind of your Buddha. And what we can do as we're doing so is we can say, I offer my body, my thoughts, my speech, and my mind to you, my holy Lama, or you, the Buddhas, for the benefit of all beings as we do the prostration. So you're standing before your altar or your holy being. You do your touch, 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 touch. And then down you go in your prostration if you're going to. The instructions say you go down on your knees and then on your hands. And a half prostration, you touch your forehead to the floor. I'm doing that as I'm saying for the benefit of all beings in that prayer that I just used. You get down, and then as you get up, you imagine you're scooping all the beings in the lower realms up. And so you get up fast and you throw them up into the higher realms and bring your hands back to your heart and then start again. I offer my body, my thoughts, my speech, my mind to you, the three jewels, for the benefit of all beings. Down you go, come up. Practically, when we go down, our hands go down first and then our knees, so that you don't slam onto your knees with your weight. And so hands can go first, then knees, then forehead. If you're wanting to do a full prostration, you squat down. Your hands are going to come to the floor. You're like stretching out. You go from knees, stretch out until you're completely prone on the floor. You keep your face down. You bring your hands like this, bend your elbows, touch your crown, bring them back forward, push yourself back up. So that full prostrations, right? They're like doing yoga. They're an easy version of sun salutations, but same kind of idea. Half prostrations are good. Full prostrations are more effortful. Either one are powerful. There's a practice called Nindro. I didn't write it. Let's put it on here. It's not from this class, but Nindro. It means preliminaries. And there are other traditions where when you go to study with the Lama, the first thing they'll assign you is called the Nindros. And classically, the Nindros is 100,000 refuge prayers, 100,000 mandala offerings, 100,000 prostrations. And I think they include 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras. That's a long story. Geshe-la has always said, in our tradition, the tradition of the ACI, our Nundros, the equivalent of gathering the goodness of all those 100,000s, except for the Vajrasattva, is doing your ACI, 18 courses, homeworks, quizzes, meditations, finals. The goodness gathered by the completion of all of that is equivalent, he even says more, bigger, than doing 100,000 refuge, 100,000 mandalas, 100,000. You know, you're welcome to do both, right? I have a student who's done both. And once we understand the power of doing these, right, we might want to assign ourselves. But in our tradition, we don't, right, get assigned, do 100 refuge prayers, and then come back to me. We just go from course to course. Why am I saying that? Because the whole reason we're doing the prostrations is because we're showing ourselves that we believe that there's a being, at least one, who knows us, who knows what we need, who loves us enough to be willing to help us with what we need. And we're telling ourselves, I can't do it without them. And that's what's happening as we do a prostration. It doesn't matter if nobody else sees us. With all of these, the prostration, the refuge, and the making offerings, it doesn't matter who else sees us. What matters is that our own mind is aware of what we're doing. The holy being knows too, right? We do want them to see. But, you know, they don't need it. They don't benefit from our doing prostration. They know we benefit. And so they say, hey, you know, it's a good idea to do prostration because of the effect it will have on our hearts. And it's really helpful to keep that in mind as we're doing our prostrations. And it's so easy to forget and get on automatic pilot. No, I'm Buddhist, I do prostrations, and just do them because there's Geshe Michael and I do 3 prostrations, and it's just becomes, it's still useful, but a missed opportunity to do prostrations or refuge or anything mindlessly. Just a missed opportunity. All right, let's take a break. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, are we back? No. So the second goodness gatherer that we do is called Kyamdro. It's the word for refuge, going for refuge. Kyamdro. And we had another class about refuge and what refuge really is and what it's not. Worldly, we take refuge in the fire department when our house is on fire because we know they're going to come and their job is to put out the fire. That's what they'll do. But we also know the house is still going to have damage. You know, they're not going to really fix it. They're just going to keep it from being worse. And that it represents worldly refuges. You know, they all in the end fail. And we're looking for something, a refuge that can really help us. But then what we mean by help is we need to clarify that as well. So Kyamdro is refuge, but what we go to refuge for, to whom, to what we seek refuge from, is the three jewels. The three jewels are Koinchok Sum. The spelling is this. It looks like Konchok, but it sounds like this, Koinchok. Like in English, it sounds like this, Koinchok. And I don't know I don't know why it comes out like that. But when you hear it, Koinchok Sum, the word for three is Sum. Koinchok means rare, like rare and special. It's Ratna in Sanskrit, which means jewel. So the Koinchok Sum is the three jewels, the three rare special things, really precious things. The three jewels. What are the three jewels? Sangye Koinchok, Chu Koinchok, Genden Koinchok. Sangye is the word for Buddha. So Buddha jewel, Sangye Koinchok. We go for refuge in the Buddha jewel. Chu's Koinchok, the Dharma jewel. Chu here meaning Dharma. And Genden meaning Sangha, the Sangha jewel. And as we've learned before, that there's two versions of each of these. The nominal Buddha jewel, the nominal Dharma jewel, the nominal Sangha jewel, and the actual Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. And when we say the nominal Buddha jewel, we're talking about the images of a fully enlightened being, right? An image you look at and you go, oh, there's Buddha. Or, oh, there's a being who's made of love, compassion, wisdom. It doesn't have to be Shakyamuni, right? In your tradition, you might look at, you know, an image of Mother Mary. And amen to that, right? So it's a being, though. It's a representation of a being. Buddha Shakyamuni is said to have walked in the flesh in our earth, first being to reach their total enlightenment from a human, they say. Sangye Koinchok. Can an image of the Buddha protect us in any way? No. Could even Buddha in the flesh protect anybody in any way? Well, then what the heck are we going for refuge to the Buddha for? If the image can't help me and the Buddha himself can't help me, what helps me when I say I go for refuge to the Buddha? Why is that Buddha so precious that we call them a jewel, a koincho, a ratna? It's something about the Buddha that's so powerful, remember? It's like the Buddha is this enlightened being, this fully enlightened being. And all that we're learning about what it takes to become one who perceives oneself as a fully enlightened being. is what this being that we're talking about has done. Right? So the more we learn about what it is to become a Buddha, the better we understand the refuge we're taking when we go for refuge in the Buddha. They know what it took for them to transform from suffering being to fully enlightened being. Now they know what it'll take for every being to do that. Part of that included growing their love for others beyond their love for themselves, and their compassion for others beyond their compassion for themselves, I guess you could say. It's what this being is that we're going for refuge in. And part of what it is to perceive oneself as Buddha is that one is perceiving the empty nature of themself and all existing things simultaneous with the appearing nature of all existing things. And so they're knowing directly, experiencing, not just knowing, experiencing this ultimate reality simultaneous with appearing reality. And we're going for refuge in that, the fact that someone has achieved that experience, being that, which says we can do it too. It tells us that because of the empty nature of our own mind, we can achieve the same thing. If we do what they do, what they tell us to do, that didn't come out right. Do this, do that, not like that. What they teach us. If we follow what they teach us, then we too can come to experience ourselves in that same way. And when we say, I'm going for refuge in the Buddha, that's what we're taking refuge in. The fact that they can teach it. The fact that they experience it directly. So they can teach us. So that we can know they're teaching us what's right, what will work. So much in the Buddha jewel that isn't just, oh, Shakyamuni Buddha, he's wonderful. Because it's way beyond that. So the nominal one is the pictures, the statues. We put them there to remind us of what the real Buddha jewel is, which is the emptiness of that being's mind that allowed them to become Buddha. They say that it's the emptiness of a Buddha that is the object that's worthy of being prostrated to. It's what we can relate with because our own mind is identically empty. Not one and the same emptiness, but identically empty. So we have the same potential they have. Their potential's been actualized. Right? We're working on ours. Dharma jewel. When we say nominal Dharma jewel, or when we say the Dharma, we're saying the books, the teachings, all the YouTubes now, all the different places where we access the teachings of the Buddha is called the nominal Dharma. But wait, if the Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha, isn't all of that the real stuff? The real teaching? No. Well, if it's not the real teaching, why are we bothering to study it? It is the real teaching, but it's not the aspect that is what can protect us, is it? Well, yeah, it is, because it's through that teaching I choose my new behavior. And it's through my new behavior that I actually protect myself. Well, if I'm protecting myself, what do I need the 3 jewels for? because I don't know how to do it, right? I need the Buddha and what they've taught in order to guide me in my efforts. But the actual Dharma jewel is the cessation that occurs in our mind when we've had the actual direct experience of ultimate reality, the direct perception of emptiness, the wisdom in the mind of an Arya being is the actual Dharma jewel. Nominal Dharma jewel is all the teaching, useful, necessary. The actual Dharma jewel is the cessation in the mind, the realization that we achieve. It clears out only three mental afflictions are cleared out by our direct perception of emptiness sutra way. But there are three important ones. And so any being who's achieved that and cleared out those three become this very valuable being who can help us do it as well. They become a jewel, right? A precious being. They become a high karmic object. That's what we mean by precious. They say, worthy to be bowed down to by men and gods. But it's not about the prostrating to them. It's about the merit the being can make by honoring them. So nominal Dharma jewel, the teachings, etc. The actual Dharma jewel, anyone who's seen the emptiness directly, but the jewel is the wisdom in their mind. Genden Koinchok is the Sangha jewel, nominal Sangha jewel. On one level, it's the group of ordained people. On another level, the Sangha is any group of Dharma practitioners. Like we're a Sangha, you could say. Sangha jewel, however, means any being who has seen emptiness directly, ordained or not. So anyone who's seen emptiness directly automatically is two of the three jewels. Powerful karmic object and beings to whom we are going for refuge. Anytime we say, I go for refuge in the three jewels. So when we say that, we may have in mind Shakyamuni Buddha or Lord Maitreya or whoever our Buddha is that we're praying to. But when we say the three jewels, it means all Buddhas, all Aryas, because every Arya is Dharma jewel and Sangha jewel. They're just not yet Buddha jewel because they haven't yet reached that omniscience. So you can be two out of the three jewels, or you can be all three jewels, but you can't be just one of the jewels because the instant you become the Dharma jewel, you become Sangha jewel. Got it? So going for refuge to those three jewels means we are saying something so that we hear ourselves recognize what's special about those three jewels. What is special about them? Their direct experience of emptiness and appearing reality simultaneously, the Buddha, and because of their loving compassion, their emanations, Buddha, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel, those beings, having seen emptiness directly, they are now on their conveyor belt to either their nirvana or their Buddhahood. We're Mahayana, so they're on their way to Buddhahood. Because of the sensations they have in their mind, because of their direct perception of emptiness that they cultivated by way of doing their purifications and gathering their goodness. Okay, so to take refuge in the three jewels, we just say the words, right? We have the prayer. We have different versions of it, right? I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in giving and the rest, may I become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Right? Seeds planted, a lot of seeds planted. The better we understand, the more powerful are the seeds. Then to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. We're gathering that goodness and adding to the goodness we made when we said it before. So every time we say our refuge prayer again, it's not just planting new seeds, but it's adding to all the ones from before. So they're all growing bigger, 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 bigger. And it's just saying the words. But really, taking refuge isn't about saying any word. It's about using our growing understanding of karma and emptiness out in our everyday life to choose our behaviors towards others. So although we use the prayer to say the words, the idea is that it's going to color our choice of behaviors when we're off cushion out in our world. And that's where we're gathering goodness as well. All right, let me see. Make sure I didn't miss something here. Yes, so again, one does not need to be a card-carrying Buddhist to utilize the equivalent practice of refuge to gather goodness, even if what we're using for our refuge is something other than the three jewels. When we understand that what really gives our protection is our understanding that we are honoring and aspiring to that wisdom of the empty nature, the no self nature of anybody we're interacting with, any experience we're having, and even our own self. So even if we only have a vague understanding of what that all means, when we say a kind of prayer that dedicates ourselves to that, living according to that, we are adding the goodness such that our practices can ripen as an increasing intellectual understanding and increasing success at clearing away our obstacles to that understanding. All right. Okay, I said that. So third factor in gathering the goodness so our purification can be effective is chupa. Chupa here means making offerings. In sutra level, there are characteristic offerings that we put out on our altar. I think we learn about them later. Here, when we're doing an offering practice, there are three characteristic categories of offerings that we can make. And here again, for the protection of the Tibetan language, please say Dakpa Masungwe Dze. Dakpa Masungwe Dze. Emranki Lu Ulwa. And Lu Truwe Chupa. Dakpa Masungwe Dze means offerings, where is it? Offerings that no one owns. Rankilu Owa means offering our own body. And Lutrue Chupa means offerings we sent out in our mind, meaning in our imagination. So when we're making offerings in this tradition, we put out an offering in front of a statue or a picture, and we just leave it there until it rots, right? Or maybe you switch it every day, but it seems like how important could that be to use hard-earned money to buy a pretty cake and put it in front of a statue and let it sit there, and the ants come and they eat it, and maybe the mice. It's like, come on, why do that? In my Western society, right, we don't do that kind of stuff. And we say, it's like, I should take that money and go donate to a homeless shelter, somebody who's gonna benefit from it. It seems silly. And our rationale is accurate in the worldly mind. And we're not saying do one or the other. We're saying consider the power that you're showing to your own mind by saying, I am going to take my hard-earned money and buy something nice and make an offering to this image as representing this being that I can't see, I don't really know actually exists. I believe, right? And I believe enough to follow the teachings and try it out for myself, but I've never seen them directly. And if seeing something directly makes it real, then Buddhas aren't real for me until I've seen one directly. If one's had an experience that seeing something directly does not prove it's real, yeah, that's really helpful, actually. Because now, right, you don't need that Buddha to show up to you before you can really know they exist, but that's a different thing. So here we're trying to say, what's the power of making offerings to an image that's so powerful that it actually helps us to be able to remove the obstacles to our own spiritual progress? And as we think it through, we do understand that those enlightened beings, so they're omniscient. They are aware of what I'm doing. That's what it means to be omniscient. So they do know that I'm putting out, a cake. They actually also know my motivation behind it, right? They know everything about it, which is a little embarrassing. You put your cake out and they do experience it. Everything a Buddha experiences contributes to their bliss, right? They're blissed out in their paradise. Everything they experience is also bliss for them. So what difference does it make if I add a cake or a cookie or a bowl of water or a pile of dog poop? It's all going to give them bliss. It doesn't actually matter from their side. It matters from my side. The act of putting an offering in front of an image that represents a being who is what I aspire to become, beyond even my ability to understand what I aspire to become, is an act of myself saying, I believe. I believe that there is such a being. I believe they can help me. I believe I can become like that, like bigger than I can comprehend myself. To see ourselves make an offering to that being is to see ourselves believe. And it seems like such a puny little thing, but it's hugely important. And Geshe often says, Dharma idiots reject the practice of making offerings. He says it's such an easy way to prove to our mind, to plant seeds in our mind that will grow into the proof that there are holy beings that are helping us, that we can become, simply by having enough conviction to go to the trouble to make offerings. Only because our own mind is watching. Not because anybody else is watching, not even because the Buddhas are watching. They are, but the point is our own mind. So then from your own mind, would you choose to put dog poop in front of as an offering to your Buddha? I mean, would you want somebody to offer you dog poop? I don't think so. Does your offering have to be something that makes you break the bank, and not be able to take care of your family so that you can do an offering to the Buddha? No, you don't want to do that either, right? Because that will come back to us as well. Do we want to push our edge a little bit? Oh, I'm comfortable buying animal crackers, so maybe I should spend a little bit more and get those fancy cookies, right? Because I'm a little resistant. To overcome my resistance. It's the offering practice really has a lot of depth to it as we learn how to do it and see the usefulness of it. So here at a beginning level, the first is we can offer things that no one owns, is what Dakpa Masungwe Dze means. Offer things that no one owns. Like, there's no limit to that one. You see a beautiful sunrise. Offer it to the Buddhas. Offer it to your teacher. Offer it to the three jewels. Just by way of seeing it, show it to them, right? They're omniscient. Buddhas, at least, are omniscient. So they can see it when you see it. A child giggling, right? Anything that you find lovely, attractive, offer to the Buddha. Geshe says it changes our inner being to do that. Right away, no. Over time, yes. Second one, Rangi Lu'ua, means offering of your own body. Like the Bodhisattva, right? Who couldn't stop crying. He was ready to cut I don't know, like the flank, the best piece of meat. He was ready to cut and sell. And they use that as a really strong offering of one's body. But what they really mean by offering of one's body is offering oneself in service. But wait, we can't even have contact with the Buddha. Maybe the Sangha jewel, Dharma jewel, we can have contact with if our teacher happens to be one of those. And we can be serving one of their projects, even if we're not immediately in contact with them. We can help them teach, we can help them gather their books, we can help them, right, with all those different projects they've got going on. And we would be serving the two of the three jewels at least. Even if our Lama, we don't perceive our Lama as two or three of the three jewels, we can still be serving the Lama as the representation of the three jewels that we can get access to. And offering ourselves in service. And then technically, anytime we're helping anybody with anything, that could be our offering of ourself in service, couldn't it? It's not them, but come on, it's part of our world. And I'm doing it with a little bit of bodhicitta in my heart and mind. And I'm doing it to gather this goodness so that I can progress along my path. Giving of our body. Third one, Lu Truwei Chupa, means offerings we send out with our mind. And this is purely fantasy. And again, it's like, is there any limit to what we can fantasize about offering to the three jewels? Right now, your bank account doesn't limit you. Now, maybe we're limited only by the amount of time we can spend doing those fantasies of making offerings to these holy beings. And in Master Shantideva's chapter here, he has verses about suggestions of what kinds of things that can be offered. There's traditional ones, right? You offer them a bathing, you offer them getting toweled off, you offer them these amazing silk clothes, you offer them the jewels that you adorn them with, you offer them, this wonderful seat to sit in, you offer them these beautiful flowers, you offer them the incense that prayers take to heaven, you offer them the lights of the wisdom, right? There are all kinds of wonderful things that we can offer. And then nowadays, right, we can offer like all these amazing videos and music, and right, just have fun making offerings to these holy beings. Who's watching? Your mind. Technically, even science says when you engage your imagination with all five senses, six, technically the thought, the brain can't tell the difference between real and imaginary. And when we say, okay, that means the seeds that are being planted by that really complete imagination, when they ripen, right, they can ripen as real or they can ripen as imaginary. The more complete is our imagination, the more complete will be the seeds ripening result of that imagination. Technically, Secret Diamond Way, first stage of Diamond Way is all about imagining, creating yourself into this holy being and doing your holy deeds. And you do it again and again and again. And those seeds ripen into, guess what? It becomes your reality. Not in an instant, but shift, 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 shift. And then, oh, my goodness. But by then you're like, you're not even aware that it used to be the old way. You're just that way, just like our life is. We have memory of being 10 years old, but come on, was being 10 years old like our memory of being 10 years old? I don't think so, right? So you'll read the reading, and in fact, I think the meditation is to read the reading and then go through the 12 offerings that it suggests in your own fantasizing, right? And if you're a visualizer, right, just fill it in, have fun with it. Present it all to the three jewels: Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. They can all be one person wrapped into one. They can be groups of two different beings, right? However you want to visualize that. So these three preliminaries, prostrations, refuge, and making offerings, gather the goodness so that when we get to our actual purification practice, coming up next class, I think, it will be more effective than if we do it without these three. So they're built into our daily practice. Okay. Any questions, comments, needs? I'm done early again. 15 minutes early. I now have 25 minutes in the bank. Yay. I will need them later. All clear as mud, right? So remember that being that we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. We've learned some stuff. that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that we can hold in our hands. Recall your own precious holy being, your triple gem. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. So, Louisa, my other person's not coming on until about 10 past 8, so I do have time to stay and visit with you. Oh, I should have stopped the recording. So let me stop recording.